Alright, so today's video is going to be a bit different as I won't be focusing solely on a singular aircraft, but rather on two very similar planes, the F-4EJ and its upgraded Kai variant. Both are practically identical in how they handle flight-wise, so initially one might be confused at why one sits at 11.0 while the other sits at 11.7. Well, there's a pretty good reason for that, as the latter has access to an extremely powerful radar paired with really good missiles. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's start simple with the regular F-4EJ Phantom II. Well, this thing is pretty much identical to the American F-4E, if you're familiar with that. As such, this is a hard-wing Phantom, but at least it gets an internally mounted Vulcan, so you don't need to lug around a heavy gun pod, unlike some other variants. The missiles aren't anything to scoff at either, as you are able to use 4 AIM-9Ps and 4 AIM-7Es when fully researched. Now, given the AIM-9Ps start to lose their potency at this battle rating, they're still quite usable at a short distance, and especially if the enemy is running real hot. I've had less luck with the AIM-7Es as it's quite easy for the enemy to break lock using chaff. Now this is more related to the radar that's equipped with the EJ, as the search box for ACM mode is massive and the tracking mode is practically useless anywhere near the deck. But they will still work quite splendidly if the enemy is not paying attention, and depending on the altitude and angle, your missile might just ignore their chaff and connect regardless. Of course, once you run out of missiles to sling, you can turn to the good old reliable Vulcan, and 640 rounds is plenty for the kind of dogfighting you find yourself in. Although I have to say that you better pray that you don't end up in a dogfight, as 9 times out of 10 you will find yourself being killed. There's something you need to understand about the F-4EJ and any other Phantom for that matter, and that is the fact that you are a support fighter. Now, in a one-on-one situation, you might be able to get away with a nice dogfight, but if the enemy knows even just a little bit of what they're doing, you are dead. Don't expect much to do with the AIM-9Es and AIM-7Ds of course at this battle rating, as they are pretty much useless, so grinding this stock might be a bit of a challenge. But hey, at least the flight performance is pretty much already at a point that's not too dissimilar to that of the spaded Phantom. I really wish I could say the same for some other aircraft that come after this. Anyways, here we have one of 2 matches for the F-4EJ that I have in store for you guys. It's not that I did bad in the plane per se, but more so that the gameplay is just pretty boring. You have to use this jet as a support plane rather than a main fighter, as you just don't have the sustained performance to keep up a prolonged dogfight. You are basically a brick with 2 jets strapped to the back. As per general strategy, I prefer to stay low to the ground just to make radar missiles much less of a hassle. You do have 90 countermeasures, which is plenty, but given how piss poor the radar is, you're better off sticking low to the deck so that you can point your nose off the ground and lock people up that way. MiG-21 gets spotted right in front of us, it's a BIS, and we go head on with him. 1 or 2 flares is enough to defeat the missile, and we just carry on going straight. Now, when flying this plane, you want to avoid losing speed as much as possible, so we have to look around to see what enemies are around us. See that there are plenty of teammates around, so we can focus on the furball that is just up ahead. So we're going to carry on, look around, and an F-4S gets spotted to our close left. Now, that thing is pretty potent and is essentially better than this thing in every regard, but that's if the pilot knows what they're doing. And just like that, a hard-wing AIM-7E brick beats an agile AIM-7F slinger. Don't worry about it. I also chaffed late, so that missile would have 100% killed me if I didn't delay its time to reach me. As soon as that's over with, the F-104 tries to get the jump on me, but just turning a bit denies an angle. And with that, we are able to reset. Now finally heading towards the furball, I send a very, very ambitious AIM-7E at this tornado, which will easily be flared, while I try and sneak a shot on this F-5. Missed the shot and the radar missile was chaffed. The MiG-21 is very tempting, but going for the F-8 with the radar missile is a much safer choice, so lock on him, send one off, and just like that, the MF is way too slow and places himself perfectly in front of our guns. 2 very nice kills, but we are still on the defensive. As you can see, there's an F-5 right behind us, and we're going to try and turn towards him, but it's just not really working out. Use the Vulcan to push away this F5. Very risky shot because we're going pretty slow, but luckily he pulls off. And this allows us to get a bit of a more favorable angle. We do have a J-35, which is much needed to keep him occupied while we try and line ourselves up. As you can see, despite having two massive engines strapped to the back, it still just doesn't really fly well. The performance is less than stellar, and we get another shot here, but nothing connects. And we're turning yet again. As you can see, it just barely keeps up, but we'll be able to reset our position. This continues for a little bit as we both struggle to deal with the F5. Now I'm trying to line up a shot, but he's flaring, so that's not going to work out. We break off just in time to see another F5, this time an F5C, coming in to take us out. Dodge his guns, the J-35 goes after him, and that missile will connect. Now, we're able to hopefully get a shot on this F5, only get a hit, but that's enough to damage him. And he's already smoking, so that means that he's going to be having a bit of a tough time, especially with a J-35. We're going to try and continue on his path. He's going way too slow at this point, so we can send off an AIM-9P. No matter how many flares he uses, that's going to connect. And with that, the last two get cleaned up by teammates, and that ends the match. As you saw there, it is pretty vital to stick around teammates in order to catch people off guard. And that's where this thing shines, in a support role. Now, I say that, and sometimes you will end up with freak show matches like this one right here. So far, this match has been pretty rough on me as I just wasn't landing any shots whatsoever. I'm already out of AIM-7Es, and I'm pulling some incredibly terrible lines paired with abysmal aim with the Vulcan. Yeah, basically out of those rounds too. We still have a teammate around us, but that Su-22 is very, very dangerous. Luckily, this F-4S is too distracted with our Jaguar friend, so we're able to launch off a AIM-9P, and that's going to connect. Now, Su-25 appears in front of us. That's not really good, so I'm going to try and just dodge out of his guns. He seems to be going very, very slow, which is good for us. We can roll over his guns. And now we're going to just head back to base because we have no ammo. And we're also running low on fuel. But at this point, I'm way too slow, and there are several things around me that can easily clap this jet into the ground. Just had to dodge some missiles with flares. That's pretty good. By some miracle, everyone decides to peel off, allowing me to return to base, along with some friendlies, and get back into the air. Of course, by the time we get back into the air, both friendlies get taken out in head-ons. So trying to capitalize whatever is left, I give chase to this Su-22 just up ahead. And as you can see, the radar that is equipped on this jet is less than stellar. As soon as it picks up on the target, it immediately loses track due to ground clutter. I do finally get a lock, but at this range, the AIM-7E just flies straight past him without being able to maneuver. Now, since this is a 1v3, I'd rather not kill all of my speed to commit to this guy, as that doesn't set me up to do anything else. So just keeping an eye on both him and my surroundings, we put some distance between ourselves, and would you look at that? An F-4EJ coming in hot from the deck. I try to dome him on the head-on, but he doesn't really commit, so that puts us with two enemies on our 6, which is not ideal. The Su-22 is now gaining on me, but before I can decide on anything, I just want to see what the Phantom will do. Hopefully give myself enough space to engage the Su-22 solo, but that doesn't seem to happen. A bit of a breather here as both are just ever so slightly slower than me, but the inevitable will come, and a decision has to be made as soon as one of them, this case the Phantom, begins to gain on me. That's when I make a hard bank and try to get either one of them in a head-on or merge. That missile is going to put me into a defensive position, and I lose control of my plane for a bit. Keeping an eye on the minimap gives me a general sense of what those two are doing, and the last enemy becomes spotted. Perfect. An SU-25 20 kilometers away, giving me ample room to engage these two and try to bring down at least one with me. Now we do a bit of awkward maneuvering to just stay out of their guns. We drop some missiles to lighten our load, and we're just going to keep rolling with these two, bleeding our speed while they hopefully maintain theirs. SU-22 gets in front of us. We only clip him, but that's still enough to discourage him from doing anything further. He's going to pull off a bit. F-4 is right in front of our guns, so we gun him out of the air. SU-22 is placed right in front of us, and this would be an easy AIM-9P kill. The same AIM-9Ps which we dropped instead of the AIM-7Es. So that's a bit awkward, but he plants it into the ground regardless. That was an interesting 1v2 situation, which I don't even know how I was able to make out of. By some miracle, we managed to reverse both of those guys at the same time. All that's left is to clean up the SU-25, which I have a bad habit of failing miserably to do so. But luckily this time we clip him and send him into a spiral of death, marking the goofiest 4-kill match I've ever had with the F-4EJ, and giving me enough research to get the F-4EJ Kai. Now this is a worthy grind. That continues as soon as you get it. Let me explain. Sure, this jet is somewhat competitive due to the F-16 radar paired with AIM-7Fs and AIM-9Ls, but you only start out with 2 AIM-9Ps. So if you tend to spade the planes previous to maximize research efficiency, you'll quickly find yourself in just a worse version of the F-4EJ. This is still a hard-wing Phantom, but now you are at 11.7. So expect to see F-15s and maybe the occasional Gripen and Su-27. Good luck with those. As such, the early grind can be quite painful since you can't even use the main feature of this plane, being the extremely powerful radar that has access to pulse Doppler. But that kind of works both ways, as at this point you should be fairly familiar with how this plane will handle in terms of flight performance. But you still have to be cautious to get any real work done. The grind is practically identical, with the missiles that you research being shifted a step up. So instead of researching AIM-9Es to 7Ds to 7Es and 9Ps, you start from 9Ps to 7Es to 7Fs and finally 9Ls. You get the picture. Of course, the overall research needed is going to be a bit higher. That's kind of a given. Once you do have this thing mostly spaded, it quickly becomes quite a force to be reckoned with. Equipped with the same radar that can be found on the F-16s, this thing can also carry 4 AIM-7Fs and 4 AIM-9Ls, both of which are still very potent at 11.7. Sure, the Sidewinders lose a bit of their efficacy on frontal attacks, but they are very flare resistant in the rear aspect. And around this bracket, there are plenty of players who still fall victim to the Sparrows. Case in point, this match right here. It's not really engaging, but that's sort of how you have to play this jet, coming from an off angle and picking off enemies who are preoccupied. Unlike the previous Phantom, you are much more capable and can afford to take more risky approaches, which can be more fun. I tend to, as per usual, fly low and sling my Sparrows at whoever is within range. This allows me to shed weight for more prolonged battles if they come. Generally, I launch them from between 3 to 9 kilometers for full effect. Any closer and you might need to lead the missile before you launch it, and any further, it won't be as effective. If someone is flying very predictably like this F-20 over here, it's very easy for the Sparrow to reach them. At this range, however, it may take quite a bit of time, and you may be vulnerable if you decide to keep the lock on them. As soon as that hits, I switch over to this Jaguar that's right in front of us, but I sort of misjudge his direction and distance from us and miss the 9L launch. No worries, as we'll just continue moving forward as is and look for more targets. Always be aware of your surroundings just to make sure there's no one behind you. I think about going for this F-4S because it's a pretty easy kill, but as soon as I get a lock on him, I see that the MiG-23 is right in front and they take him out. Tiger Shark is right behind them, so lock him up, and that AIM-9L is going to reach him. See that the Mirage is distracted and busy with the teammate that's just ahead, so we're able to just slot ourselves right behind him, launch another AIM-9L, and switch over to this F-4S. Use the Sparrow, and that will connect no problem. And just like that, a very quick 3 kills, and 4 to mark the end of the match. At this point, it's basically over, and that's another thing. These matches at top tier start to go by really fast. It makes it sometimes difficult to get any work done, but you really just have to slot yourselves in and hope for the best. Luckily, you are equipped with some pretty good missiles that allow you to do so. This last match was more or less the same thing, with me capitalizing on the confusion caused by a furball, albeit to a much greater extent. This match is 11-3 to 12-3, which I found to be the most common throughout my time spading the Kai variant. Going into this, I don't expect to see many enemies on this side, as they tend to go more so to the right of the canyon. So I initially go for this Mirage to hopefully get him with an AIM-7F. It's looking all fine and dandy at first until I fat finger my radar button and lose track. I try to relock, but this F-4S is coming in hot, so lock onto him and hopefully at least scare him with the Sparrow. Another Mirage comes in, miss the head-on, so we're just going to continue on and give chase to the initial Mirage. Not sure if I should launch an AIM-9L at this point because I don't know if he's going to be behind the rock. That probably would have hit, but now there's an F-14 that's coming in. Dodge him, go up, and there we go. There's a lot of enemies around us. So pre-chaff, pre-flare, just to discourage them from launching a missile at us. But since there's so many enemies around us, we're able to just go back down and slot ourselves behind someone. A Mirage F-1C. And here you get to see just how... yeah. The turning is fine, but of course it's going to be a struggle. We are losing speed very quickly, and the more we do, the slower the turn rate's going to be. We're able to get an AIM-9L off, and that will track. Going back down, I see that there's an F-4S coming in from the side, so we're going to lock him up and launch off an AIM-7F. His missile goes for mine, and that takes it out. It's a bit unfortunate, but it's not the end of the world. There's still plenty of teammates around us, so we're able to just reset a bit. Keeping an eye on everyone that's around us, we're just going to keep flaring every now and then just to hopefully dodge some things. Look around. Once we are good, launch another AIM-9L, and that will connect. Turn around just to see who's coming in. There's an F-4EJ this time, and thinking that's going for me, but it's not, so we're able to just slot ourselves behind these two. They're both going very slow. I know that the MiG-23 will be able to outturn me, depending on the angle, so go for him first, and then I'm able to just slot myself behind this F-4. Since he's an F-4 and a hard wing, it's going to be pretty easy to stick on his ass. And he gets too focused at killing one of my teammates, and I'm able to just gun him down. And that marks kill number 4 in a very, very busy furball. And now that there's only one enemy left, it's time to use an order and pick the wrong one. So we're going to be going in this blind, but luckily he appears right in front of us. Making up for the poor aim earlier, I'm able to clip him, and he's going to go down. That is the 5th and final kill of the match, and just about all the footage I have for this video. As of writing this, I do have both the F-15J and F-16EJ fully researched, but I don't think I'll be making a video on them anytime soon. In terms of the F-15, you might see a video from me, but if I decide to spade it, that will take forever, and I'm just too broke to purchase and crew the F-16EJ. I might go back to props, but only time will tell whatever I cover for the next video. Anyways, till next time, I'll catch you then.